It's Ocean.
Tally-ho, it's Ocean back again and welcome to part 3 of this tier list video. Series. I meant to say video series. For those of you that might not be aware, I made a long ass video that was 100 games in a single tier list. The problem is that video was gonna be about 2 hours long. Therefore I decided to split it up into 4 chunks. This is part 3. So this is Future Ocean saying, let's get into this. Woo! Back to you, past Ocean. Woo! So the next game is another foray into the walking sim category, and that game is Firewatch. And I really enjoyed this game, but I don't think it was anywhere near as good as Edith Finch. The whole story they were trying to tell was really cool. When you have the perspective and when you figure out what they were trying to do with the story, I think it's really cool. But I did think that some of the game's backtracking let the game down. There were certain parts of the game where I literally had to go across the entire map, and I was bored out of my mind the entire time because it was just walking, and that was it. But the scenery was absolutely fantastic at the same time. I really enjoyed the soundtrack, and I just had a really good time with this game. So I'm once again putting it in pretty darn good, which means I have to frickin' rechange my goddamn Now the next game is another indie game, which is kind of one of those time management or resource management kinds of games, but with a lot more stuff to do. And that game is Forager. I made a video on this game as well, and I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. A very cute, very addictive little game, and I'm going to be putting it in pretty darn good. Highly recommend. Now then, it's time to jump into another franchise, or at least part of a franchise, and that franchise is Grand Theft Auto. I am going to immediately say, because everyone's going to be mad at me for this anyway, I haven't got GTA 3 or Vice City included in this franchise, and I don't know why. I find those games kind of dated to the point where I don't enjoy the gameplay as much as the other games, so I haven't included them. And I know people are going to get mad, but I'm going to immediately say my first game in this franchise was San Andreas. So going back to Vice City and GTA 3 after a bunch of quality of life improvements, I just couldn't get into them. I couldn't enjoy them. I found them really difficult to play and just really frustrating a lot of the time. So I haven't included them because I don't want to anger everyone by putting them potentially in a tier that they don't belong in. So the first game is going to be GTA San Andreas, and I personally think this game is a masterpiece. I absolutely love it. I love the story, I love the characters, the soundtrack is mwah. The gameplay was really fun. There's lots of customization elements that I really enjoyed. I just absolutely adore this game. And to follow that up, we're going to be putting GTA 4 in pretty darn good, because it wasn't as good as San Andreas for me personally. And GTA 4 is almost like its own separate thing, because it doesn't feel like any of the other GTA games, in my opinion at least. It felt like its own beast, its own new thing. But I still massively enjoyed this game. Though I will say, for me, GTA 4 was when the controls for Rockstar Games started to get really kind of just not that great. The cover system is very frustrating to deal with. The aiming was a little bit weird, like you'd shoot enemies and sometimes the bullets wouldn't quite hit, or it'd take like 1,000 rounds just to take down a simple enemy. It was really weird, and it had ragdoll physics now, which sometimes were a little bit iffy, but I still really enjoyed the game, so I'm putting it in pretty darn good. And now, one of the games that I feel like people are gonna probably disagree with me on, and that is GTA 5, and I'm putting this in pretty darn good, because I do think it's a fantastic game, very fun. The driving is mwah. I've done that like 1,000 times now, and I'm gonna do it 1,000 more. Mwah. The gunplay feels a lot better than GTA 4 was, but I don't know, I love the characters and some of the other elements. The soundtrack's still pretty good, but not quite as good as San Andreas for me personally. But I didn't really enjoy the story as much as other GTA games. I just kind of thought that it fell flat at certain points, and it was very short as well. I think I finished the game in like 2 days, and I was like, what the heck? Like, it took me a lot longer to finish other GTA games, and I don't know, I felt like it needed more to it. On top of that, because as I've mentioned, I loved San Andreas, I was really excited to hear that San Andreas' world was going to be coming back for GTA 5, only to then find out that it was only half of the map. And for that reason, I was actually really disappointed that they didn't include the entire map of San Andreas. They only included one half, basically the bottom half of the map. They didn't include any of San Fierro or Las Venturas, and I was really disappointed by that. I was actually hoping they might make a DLC where they would add like a huge expansion or something, where they might add some of those areas in, but they didn't, and I'm still kind of salty about it. But yeah, I still think it's a fantastic game though, so I'm putting it in pretty darn good. Okay, so we're going to be jumping into yet another franchise, and that franchise is pretty darn rad. And that franchise is Guitar Hero. I freaking love Guitar Hero. Now, before I talk about the first game, I am going to say that I've only included 2 games from the Guitar Hero franchise. I've not included Rock Band because, I don't know, I never really took to Rock Band as much as I did with Guitar Hero, so they're not included. But the first one is Guitar Hero 3 Warriors of Rock, and holy goddamn shit, masterpiece! I personally believe that Guitar Hero 3 is the best music game that I've ever played in my entire life, and it's definitely the best of the Guitar Hero franchise. It had an incredible soundtrack, it was so much goddamn fun. I have so many fond memories of this game that just, anytime I play this I feel super nostalgic and I just have an absolute blast. And the second game is Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock, which I also absolutely love. But I think with Guitar Hero 3, I have a bit of nostalgia, which is maybe clouding my vision a little bit, I will completely admit that. Whereas with Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock, I don't quite have that nostalgia as much, and for that reason I'm putting it in pretty darn good. But I think I actually played Warriors of Rock more than Guitar Hero 3, just because Warriors of Rock had a hell of a lot more DLC and a lot more tracks to play. I love both of these games almost equally, and I'm happy to play any of them at any point in time. I freaking love these games. And now it's once again time to jump into yet another franchise, and that franchise is Halo. Now, I've only included a couple of Halo games, just because I didn't want to clog up too much of this list with just every entry in a franchise. I figured I would save those for possibly their own separate videos. So I only have a couple of the Halo games in here, and the first one, of course, that I'm going to be talking about is Halo Combat Evolve. Oh my fucking god, this game goddamn slaps. This game was possibly the game that got me into first-person shooters as a child. I adored this game. I have so many fond memories of playing this game and some of the other Halo games with my dad when I was younger, and we would play co-op in these games all the damn time, and I loved it so much. And Halo Combat Evolved started that, and now it is a very dated game, I will say, but I still think that it holds up very well, especially if you jump into Halo Anniversary, which is basically a remaster of the original Halo with more updated graphics. And for those reasons, I'm putting Halo Combat Evolved in Masterpiece. Now, the next one I'm going to be talking about is the fabled one, is the amazing one, is the one that most people tend to talk about, and that game is Halo 3. And I'm putting Halo 3 in Masterpiece because it is actually my favourite Halo game and one of my favourite games of all time. I played the crap out of the campaign, both single player, with my father, with friends that I had at the time, and I played the absolute goddamn hell out of the multiplayer. I adored every aspect of this game. I would sit in Forge mode just to mess around for hours on end. I adore this game, and I still frequently go back to the Halo Master Chief Collection in order to play Halo 3. I just love it so much. Now, the next one may potentially be a bit controversial. I'm not entirely sure how the fan base feels about this game. But the next game is Halo ODST. And I'm going to say right away, I'm not going to put it in Masterpiece, but I do still adore this game. So I'm putting it in pretty darn good. I don't know what it is, there's just something about ODST that once again doesn't quite pass that threshold into Masterpiece, and I can't put my finger on it, but I still love this game. The nighttime ambience, the jazz style soundtrack, oh, it's so freaking good. I loved this game. I think the reason why it's not in Masterpiece is because for anyone that doesn't know, in Halo 3 ODST, you're trying to find your squad. So you get like a bunch of different characters that you play as, and every mission is like a different character. But in between those missions, you get like a semi-open world section where you get to roam around in the nighttime streets of this place called Mombasa, trying to find your squad. And even though those parts are really cool, I find now going back to play those sections can be kind of a chore because you're just making your way from point A to point B a lot of the time and nothing really interesting happens. Even though the ambience of the nighttime, the empty streets, and the jazz soundtrack is really, really fantastic, the gameplay can be really boring in those sections, and I think that for me takes it down just a little bit just a little bit. On top of the fact that the map is very confusing to traverse sometimes, but I still love the game. Now then, we're going to be jumping into David Cage games because they have so much emotion. And I'm going to be starting with probably one of the games that put them on the map, I'd say, and that game is Heavy Rain. Now, I think the story in Heavy Rain is pretty damn awesome. The whole thing of any character can die at any particular given moment is awesome. I loved that. I thought it was fantastic to see how those things can change, though I do kind of think the gameplay is a little bit dull in places. Because these kinds of games can have you having these high-speed, amazing chases where, oh my god, what's going to happen? Oh, you're in danger. Oh no, you got to make sure you don't die. And oh, so many QTEs, which are kind of annoying, but oh well. And oh my god, what's going to... Oh no, I can't... To, I'm going to go over here and take the trash out. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to wash a dish. They can go from really interesting story beats to just really monotonous gameplay. And for that reason, I'm going to put Heavy Rain in pretty darn good. Now, there is one more David Cage game that I am going to be talking about, and that is, of course, Detroit Become Human. And I have to say that I have a lot of the same opinions for Detroit Become Human that I had for Heavy Rain as well. But, at the same time, I will say I do think Detroit Become Human was better than Heavy Rain, or at least I enjoyed it more than Heavy Rain. It does have a bit of a special place in my heart, and I really, really, really recommend checking it out if you don't mind story-driven games. But I'm still going to put it in pretty darn good. Because even though I did really enjoy the game, I do think, like I said, it has a lot of the same issues that Heavy Rain had, and therefore I see them almost on a similar footing. So the next one is a game that probably a lot of people haven't heard of, and to me this game is almost an undiscovered gem. It is a freaking incredible game, and I am constantly promoting this game on Twitter because I need more people to play this game. I just think it is such an like I said, an undiscovered gem. Not enough people know about this game, and that game is Horus. Now, this game was a game that was free on Epic Games for a little while, so if you did claim that, I recommend giving it an install and trying it out. This game is basically a platformer game with some fun little mini games in between that has a hell of a lot of references and humour in there. Like, I can literally put this screenshot up right now and ask you to try and find all the references. There's so many references in this one screenshot alone, and I love that about this game. But the story is absolutely just quite beautiful, amazing, really fun. It has some really wacky moments, really endearing moments. It has a little bit of spooky stuff mixed in there, but nothing with like jump scares or anything like that. I just think this game is the whole package, and just please go and check it out. Go and look at the trailer. If you think it looks cool, go and check it out over on Steam or Epic Games. It's actually quite a cheap game to purchase. Please do not sleep on this game. Go and play it immediately. It is fantastic. For all those reasons, I'm putting it in Masterpiece. Now I'm going to be talking about another game that kind of hit me like a truck and I did not expect it. And that game is Hypnospace Outlaw. This might be a game that people may not have heard of once again, and I'm going to be putting this game in pretty darn good. I love games that give you a unique experience, or at least games that give me a unique experience, where I feel like it's something I've never played before, and Hypnospace Outlaw felt like one of those games. It didn't quite push past the threshold into Masterpiece though, which makes me a little bit sad, but it's got a really cool soundtrack, it's got really cool really awesome aesthetic and visuals to it that's inspired by the 90s, like the technology of the 90s, and I just really enjoyed the experience. I highly recommend it. Go and check it out. Now the next one is going to be a franchise, and this franchise, admittedly, I have not finished yet. You might be able to tell where I'm going with this, but I still need to complete 4, 5, 6, and the new game that just recently came out, and that franchise is the Yakuza franchise. So the first one that I'm going to be talking about is the freaking incredible, absolutely amazing, just so goddamn good game, Yakuza 0. I have seen a lot of people say that they think this game is a modern masterpiece, and I totally agree with that. Boom! Masterpiece. Absolutely incredible. The story's fantastic, although not as good as some of the stories in the other games, but The mini-games are really fun. The combat is freaking incredible. The soundtrack is absolutely goddamn perfect. I love everything about this game. I also made a video on this as well, so if you want to know more about that, go and check it out. And I'm only going to be talking about one more game in this franchise, and technically it's not in the franchise, it's a spin-off, and that spin-off is Judgment. I've seen a lot of varying opinions on this game. Some people think it was fine, some people absolutely love it. I'm in the second category. I freaking love this game. I think Judgment is a goddamn masterpiece. I love it, the story is fantastic, the characters are very endearing and really interesting. The only thing that I would say about Judgment is I don't think it's as good as Yakuza 0, because the mini-games and the side stories don't quite match up to Yakuza 0, but I still think it's an absolutely incredible game. And I've got to say, I'm going to put the Yakuza franchise as a whole, at least, in pretty damn good, just because it's such a reliable franchise. Almost every one of the Yakuza games are just fantastic. They're all great games, and that is amazing. Now, the next one is part of the franchise, but I'm only going to be talking about one entry, and I once again feel like people are going to get mad at me for this. That franchise is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I'm going to be talking about the second game, not the first one. I'll admit I couldn't get into the first one, but I am going to play through it at some point. I promise you, I am going to play through it. I'm going to make a video on it at some point, and I'm going to give it its first shot. But I actually played the sequel first. For some reason. I don't know why. I was a weird kid. I've always really enjoyed this game. Anytime I go back to play it, I have a blast. I do think that it does have some issues with its story flow. On repeat playthroughs, the intro of the game takes way too long to get through and kind of frustrates me after a little while. And for that reason, I'm going to be putting it in pretty darn good. But I do really enjoy the story, the characters, and a bunch of systems that they added in the sequel that weren't in the previous game, such as the ability to turn your teammates to the light side or dark side and turn them into Jedi. I might be wrong on that, maybe they are maybe it is in the first game as well, but I just really enjoyed those systems. Now the next one. Oof. We're not going to be jumping into a whole franchise, but we are going to be jumping into a game by a big developer who already has games on this list. That developer is Valve. And that game? Left 4 Dead 2. Oh my god, I freaking love this game. This is one of my favourite games of all time, and I once again, just like with Halo, have so many nostalgic memories of playing this game, either by myself or with friends. In fact, mostly with friends and mostly with other people. I love the Left 4 Dead games, and really want Left 4 Dead 3. Valve, why won't you give us Left 4 Dead 3, please? I'm putting this game in Masterpiece. It might not have much of a story, but its soundtrack is great, its gameplay is still really fun to this very day. I just love it. I love everything about this game. I freaking adore it, and it has mod capabilities on PC. I've been playing so many mods. Every now and then I jump back into this game and I install a bunch of weapon mods, skin mods, a bunch of custom map mods. You can play through maps from Resident Evil 1, 2 and 3 in this game. You can play through like almost the whole campaign of those games in Left 4 Dead 2. It doesn't work the same, obviously, but it's actually quite impressive what you can do with this game for mods. It is insane, so it goes in Masterpiece. I'm only going to be talking about 2 of the 3 entries in this franchise. That franchise? Life is Strange. Now I'm going to start off with Life is Strange 1. I do think this game is fantastic. The fanbase can be rather toxic sometimes, which has kind of turned me a little bit sour on the first game, I will admit. And without spoiling anything, I do think that the endings to this game are kind of terrible when you really think about them. Like, they're just not very good, unfortunately, for a multitude of different reasons for each ending. So I'm going to put this in pretty darn good, because I still think the game is fantastic, the story is really interesting, the bond between the characters is just wonderful, and the soundtrack, oh my god, the soundtracks in these games are amazing. And this one by far has the best soundtrack. I am going to be skipping over Life is Strange Before the Storm, but I would also put it in pretty darn good. But Life is Strange 2, the next game that I'm going to be talking about, and I am putting it in Masterpiece. Some people are going to disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But I just personally thought that this story hit me so much harder than Life is Strange 1. I got attached a hell of a lot more to the characters. I love Sean and Daniel Diaz a little bit more than Max and Chloe, even though Daniel's a little brat at times. This was another one of those games where once the game was over, I felt hollow inside because I didn't know what to do with my life. The game was over, that was it, that's the end of the story, there's no more. And I was really sad about that for so long. I had like post-game depression after finishing that game. I love Life is Strange 2. The only 2 things I could say I don't like as much about this game that I think the original game was better at is the soundtrack is a little bit better in the original game, and the original game had the time power mechanic, which I actually really loved. It added some really cool puzzle elements to the game where I would spend ages just toying with the mechanic to see what I could do. Life is Strange 2 didn't have that and kind of made the gameplay not quite as good, but at least for its story, I much preferred Life is Strange 2. I thought it was a fantastic game, and it has a very dear place in my heart. I realise now, so long into this video, that I put so many franchises in this goddamn tier list. So once again, I'm going to be jumping into another franchise. Who would have thunk it? And that franchise is the Mario franchise, but I'm only going to be talking about 2 particular games, because admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of the franchise, and there are still games in the Mario series that I need to play, such as Super Mario Odyssey, which I will be playing at some point. But the game I'm going to talk about is Super Mario 64. I'll admit, I've never been as big on platformer games games on Mario games as other people are. So I'm going to be putting this in Pretty Darn Good, which I know some people are going to disagree with. I couldn't freaking put that in Pretty Darn Good for a second, then I was struggling. If you disagree, that's totally fine, I totally understand. It's just that, like I said, I've never really been as big into platforming games as other people, but I did really enjoy Super Mario 64. I think it's a fantastic game, and definitely deserving of the title of one of the best games ever made. I highly respect the game. And of course, on that note, I'm going to be also talking about Super Mario Sunshine, which I'm also going to be putting in Pretty Darn Good. Basically, same reasons. I love this game as well, or I do kind of prefer the worlds of Mario Sunshine a bit more than Super Mario 64, just because I love that, like, sunshine, beach-like, holiday aesthetic. I love that. I love that so much. Now then, the next franchise. It's gonna be an interesting one. That franchise is Mass Effect. More like Mass Erect, am I right? So then, Mass Effect 1. I'm immediately putting this in Pretty Darn Good. I'm also putting Mass Effect 2 in Pretty Darn Good. And I'm putting Mass Effect 3 in Pretty Darn Good. Because I don't know what it is about this franchise, but I love all three of these games for different reasons. I never saw them as anything more than just a great game. Some people are going to disagree with that, and that's fine. I do still love these games, but I've just never seen them as a masterpiece. Now, Mass Effect 1, I don't like the combat as much as Mass Effect 2 or 3, but I do love some of the aesthetics and just the way that the game worlds look and feel compared to the second and third game. For me, Mass Effect 1 definitely has that feeling of alien than Mass Effect 2 or 3. I don't know why, that's just how I feel. A lot of the planets felt like really like, whoa, this is really unusual. I don't know what's going on here. What the heck? Compared to Mass Effect 2 and 3. I know some people might disagree with me on that, but it's just my opinion. You don't have to agree. Mass Effect 2, fantastic game. Mass Effect 3, fantastic game, but Mass Effect 3's ending was, But I did really enjoy Mass Effect 3's multiplayer a hell of a lot more than I thought I would, even with all the loot box bullshit. Now then, I'm going to be talking about a singular game that isn't part of a franchise. Shock! Gasp! Horror! Ow! I slapped my face really hard. And that game, I'm actually repping right now with this t-shirt. That game is Sayonara Wild Hearts. I freaking love this game, and I'm going to be making a video on this at some point, and I'm putting Sayonara Wild Hearts straight into Masterpiece. The soundtrack is absolute perfection, the gameplay is incredibly fun, the aesthetic is also absolute perfection, the story is incredibly beautiful once you understand what's going on. I just think it's the full package. I play this game constantly. I'm probably going to go and play this game after this damn tier list video is over, because I play this game that much. I have headphones on, I jam out the entire time, I sing along with all the songs, and I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. So it goes in Masterpiece. So that is the end of part 3. What did you think? Let me know where you would have ranked these games in the comment section down below. If you like what you saw here, then feel free to subscribe and click the like button and smash the fucking ass cheeks and all the things that content creators say these days. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Toodaloo!